now.
Says we're on the air, bud.
Well, I haven't pushed it live yet, so let's see. Let's push it live. Let me grab. Hold on, I gotta grab a
Push it
water.
live.
Hold on, I gotta grab a water.
Push it live. Get some water. I mean, we're going live. David Taylor. David Taylor to the 34-time Oklahoma State Cowboys. Giddy up,
Dun, dun, dun,
boys.
dun, dun, dun. All right, so it's telling me to. It is telling me to push to go live.
Push to go live.
I'm gonna push to go live. Let's share it out. I'll tweet you the link.
Ooh, it's up already, buddy.
Yep, people are asking. Are people in? Currently watching. All right, let's tweet this out.
Oh, where it is.
Oh, Cowboy Willie. Let's see. The Brain and I are live. All right. We're live. So I just had a great great conversation with Wyatt Hendrickson. Great timing because we were talking before we started recording. Like we were kind of the stuff you can't always say at on the air, obviously. And it's crazy how impacted he is by this. Here, his first of 4 visits was Oklahoma State. And here you have, and I asked him, what's your thoughts? Coleman or David, who do you want? And he gave a great answer. That'll be out tomorrow. Kennedy Blades is also going to be on, I believe, tomorrow. We're getting a lot of people, so the stream's got to be out there.
Yeah, I just tweeted it out. Oh, let me mute now. Okay, we're good. We're good. Yeah. One thing in all this, and I guess we'll wait till a couple minutes till more people get on, but one avenue of this decision and this process was that a lot of people were saying, well, we need to get it done. We need to get it done soon because of the portal, and we need to get it done soon. Kids going in and going out. And if David is hired, would Levi Haynes go? Would Tyler Kasich go? Would his guys go, right? To me, that's all. Who cares? That is small potatoes type stuff. I mean, if you're making a decision about your program or franchise, you should not be worried. You should not say, well, you know what? We really need to hurry this process up or we won't get Wyatt Hendrickson. Wyatt Hendrickson's terrific, but that guy, that's 1 year, guys. Right? This is a decision to change or a new era in Oklahoma State wrestling, Cowboy up,
and
for the next 20 years. You're not making a coaching change so you get 1 year out of Dean Hamidi or Wyatt Hendrickson, right? No offense, but there's a big picture here, guys.
Yeah, and this, to me, you've been on the inside a lot longer than I have, but what's crazy about this is, I mean, Twitter went tonight from somebody asking me my opinion, and based on everything I had heard, I said it ain't happening. David Taylor's not going to be the next head coach. And then I started getting, and when I say I thought it was not happening, that's what I heard, because this news seemed to sway like a pendulum more than anything I've heard, where there is a definitive yes, definitive no, definitive yes. And it's been a long time since we've heard something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's been a crazy process the whole time. If you look at it in totality, the who's going to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State started 10 years ago. When's John going to be done? When's it going to be done? Who's it going to be? And it's, who's John gonna name for a long time?
Yeah.
And even the Oklahoma State alumni in that big Oklahoma State coaching tree, the Pendletons, the Polizios, the Coleman Scotts, Kevin Wards, all, and whoever I'm forgetting, I'm sorry. But Who's going to be a new guy? Who's going to be the next head coach? Chris Perry, even, right? And so there was all that buildup. So even as much as the last week and a half, 2 weeks have been crazy, there's been speculation about this job for 10 years.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of twists and turns. It was a lot of, hey, they're going after this guy. Okay, they're zeroing in on this guy. It's about to be a done deal. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Okay, tomorrow there's a meeting. And I'll tell you right now about some particulars. I guess we can just say, hey, David Taylor is getting hired. David Taylor's getting hired as the Oklahoma State head coach.
Give your timeline of everything that you've heard.
Okay. And I know for me to say that it's going to be announced tonight, I'm a little scared to say it will be announced tonight. But that's what I'm told. I just literally read a text message from the people that matter, from the administration, that said there will be an announcement tonight. Let me clarify. It said we will announce the new hire tonight, and that text message was sent.
I just got a text that the alum was just notified.
Yeah. So
give the timeline, because it's been crazy. It's the pendulum swinging with this one.
Yeah. So there's it's been a lot of wishy-washy the past couple of days, especially. In the past, I don't know, 24 hours, Friday they went to see David. The fallout from
By the way, timeout, interjection. Our guy Fellers, investigative journalist Fellers, has been on this one. He's been on this one.
Just checking flight logs. Checking flight logs like it's A Few Good Men. But they go to see David, and then it settles down. The news sort of settles down, and when I say settles down, I mean like 36 hours you didn't hear much. And then you heard that David was probably – everybody was saying, okay, David's probably out. It doesn't look good. It looks like he turned it down. Last night I talked to – and you get different stories from different people, and it's funny. It's funny that I talked to 2 or 3 people like that are as inside as you can get. As inside as you can get at Oklahoma State, and they tell me something, and then somebody else that is as inside as you can get says, no, that's not true. Yes,
Yep.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's true. Okay? I don't know. You're lying. But Coleman was supposed – so last night, 2 individuals close to the program told me that Coleman was supposed to have a meeting. It looks like Coleman's going to have a meeting with the AD tomorrow. Okay, it's Coleman, right? The David Taylor thing did not happen, which to me honestly left me sort of shaking my head like I love David, and I'm sure he has his reasons, but I'm like, why? If you don't want to coach Oklahoma State and you don't want to coach now, who do you want to coach, and when do you want to coach, and where? Like, if David wouldn't have taken this, it would have confused the hell out of me, because he told me straight up there's only 3 jobs he would take. So if you're going to wait till one of those 3 open up again, when is that? In 12 years? You know what I mean? They don't come along they don't come along often. So this morning I get up. I'm like, okay, we'll see what the day brings. Coleman's going to have a meeting with the AD, and it's probably going to be announced at Coleman, right? I get up. I listen to a couple snippets of FRL, which what Piles had said on FRL totally aligned with what I knew. I assume he's heard the same thing from the same people, right? Or the same group of people.
Well, it was the same message that was consistent, where it was like David was interested, but it sounds like he's not going to take the job, and it sounds like the AD is prepared to give it to Coleman, and like that's
right.
Everybody who I think heard it from different people heard the same message.
So, I mean, I'll be honest with you. As the day went on, I talked to a couple more people, and so just to reiterate, I'm not saying Piles is wrong. I'm saying me and Piles were saying the same. We were saying the same message. Uh, but a couple hours later, um, I'm told the meeting doesn't happen. So I always double check, triple check. Called a couple people. Wasn't he supposed to have a meeting? Yeah, it didn't happen. So I'm like, what is going on? So I'm gonna be honest. I text Piles. I'm like, is there a curveball today? Did something happen today? And he's like, I just got off a show saying it's going to be Coleman, and I'm pretty sure everything has changed in the last 2 hours. And I'm like, I think so too. So I don't know what exactly happened to change David's mind. In conversations with Piles, we were talking about could money. Well, the donors went back and gave him more money, and I said, if and the number, by the way, I don't know what the number is, but it's supposed to be ridiculous. It's supposed to be like maybe record breaking. I don't know. Have you heard the number?
I haven't heard an exact number, but I've heard he declined the first one, and it wasn't. I don't think he declined the first one because of money, but I heard when they came back, it was a number that just nobody could reasonably, responsibly refuse.
Well, okay, so I thinking about that and even having a conversation with Piles about it, I said, Christian, it's kind of odd to me that, like, let's say $5 isn't good enough, but then they come back with $7, and that's going to change your mind. I said, to me, that doesn't. I don't really get that unless that was a negotiation tactic, right? Maybe that's how you play your hand and you get what you get. And Paul's made a good point though. He's like, I bet you it was not about his salary. I bet you it was about the resources. Having the money for the staff that he wants, making sure he has this, making sure he has that. And so I thought that was a really good point. It probably was not entirely about his salary, but about having the resources you have, whether that's for as many coaches as you want, trainers, sports nutritionists, psychologists, hot tub, whatever it might be, travel, NIL money, right? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a good point by Powell. But yeah, here we are. New era.
Yeah, and I've already heard who is rumored to be his assistant coaches, and it's basically going to be a complete shakeup if true.
I honestly have not heard. I have not heard. I talked to David Thursday, and I did not ask him about. We didn't talk about who his assistants would be. We didn't talk about anything really specific, and I haven't tried to even call him since. I mean, he's probably getting calls nonstop, right? He's making one of the biggest decisions of his life. I ain't gonna interrupt that. Just
Now, what if it was fantasy football related?
It was fantasy football. I mean, that's what I actually texted him. I said, David, can you call me? I think it was Thursday morning. I said, David, can you call me? He's like, yeah, I'm in the sauna. What's up? And I said, number one, I want to talk about if you're interested in the Okie State job. Number two, I want to know the draft order for this year. And he was like, yeah, I'll call you as soon as I get out of the sauna. But there's the logical conclusions, right? His brother-in-law is Jimmy Kennedy. Maybe pulling some guys from his buddy's Penn State tree, right? I personally think it would be a really good idea. The Stillwater's a different place, man. Stillwater's a different place, and one thing that I am not happy about, while I am happy that I think it's very exciting. I think it's very exciting for the sport that David Taylor, one of the greatest in our era, Olympic champ, is taking over such a historic program. David himself has wrestled an exciting style, a high pace style, always looking to score, and he coaches his wrestlers to do the same. And he's created a pipeline of young studs. So I think it's really exciting and it's really refreshing. The downside to me is those dudes at Oklahoma State I love them. I love Chris Perry. I love the whole staff that they got there. Guys like Zoe. If it was, I don't know. David's the king of the castle, right? He's going to run the program the way he is going to run it. If I was him, if I was advising him, I would say, David, it might be a good idea, even if you, for a year or two, to keep a Okie State guy on. Whether that's Chris Perry, who is very integral into that program, or even like a Chris Pendleton. Make a pitch to Chris Pendleton. Right? Get an Okie State person in there for some stability, because the vibe that I'm getting, and I see a lot of stupid stuff posted on message boards, I see a lot of stupid stuff posted on Twitter, where it's like, David is exciting, but he doesn't have his coaching experience, and he's not part of the fabric of Oklahoma State. But first of all, that's stupid. You hire the best guy you can. If they think that's the best guy, if they think that's the guy we're going to go with, and he's the best candidate, then you go with him, regardless if there was but I do think there'd be tremendous value in keeping somebody on, whether that's a Pendleton, whether that's Chris Perry, Tyler Caldwell, Zoe, some of those guys, right? Somebody should really stay on there.
It's going to be interesting, too, because this is one of those moves that really there's so many moving components to the domino effect after, whether it's, like you said, what happens with guys like Levi Haynes and Kasich, what happens with M2 Training Center, what happens to a guy like Coleman Scott, even whether or not David wants to keep Coleman is one question. The other question there is, was Coleman making this move primarily to take over as head coach? And now he kind of steps back, and it's like, I'm not taking over this program, anytime in the near future.
That's a whole ball of yarn to unravel as well. There's really this whole search was really fascinating. Like I said, it really started 10 years ago. It really started. I mean, there was no single off season, like legit. When JoJo got to high school, when Joe Smith got to high school, it was like, is John going to be done before Joe goes to college? Then JoJo went to college. It's like, okay, John will probably be done when Joe's done. And he wasn't still. And so talks and talks and talks. And there's two things to really unpack with how wild this coaching search has been. It turned out to be no one on of John's lineage, right? No former Cowboy. Although there were massive inclinations, overtures, rumors that John wanted somebody enormous, right? And John's in a little funky position. I was talking to Ryan Holmes last night and saying, John says one thing, but he also says another, and maybe this guy's the best guy, and maybe, did he tell this guy that he's the next head coach? Did he tell that guy that he's the next head coach? I'm like, you know what it's like? John's in a really difficult position because he's like the father, and he has like seven children, and he has to decide to give one the inheritance, right? And so that's the way it looked for a long time. But then last year, there were these rumors that John wants an out of the park hire. John wants the most decorated. He said, "This is," I mean, allegedly, "this is Oklahoma State. This is the winningest franchise in wrestling. We're gonna hire the best, bar none." And so that was one theory as well. That was one narrative, and ultimately, that's what we got. That's what we got. David Petruzzi, or no, Don Bashada put in the thing. Tell me the rumors about the assistants, which I really want to get to, but a couple things more about the backstory is, it seemed like one thing you need to know about this pursuit of the next head coach is there really seemed like two camps. There really appeared to be two camps. There were the people, basically Oklahoma State fans, the people in the town. They wanted to keep the nucleus together. They wanted to keep it in the house. Number one, because they know them, they trust them, they're friends with them. It's a big family there, so that makes sense. And if it is an outsider, if David Taylor does come in, then that has a potential to break that whole family up. Now Tyler Caldwell might have to go find a job. Now Chris Perry might have to go find a job. They all have to scatter, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one reason. That was one camp. The other camp, it was very clear to me that the other camp was the highest up administrators, the AD. I think the AD was looking for the best candidate regardless of, carry him into the future, number one. And the search committee. And when you hire a search committee, and they hired a professional search committee. And when you do that for one of two reasons. You either do it to look like it's professional and good and just we did our due diligence, or you do it to really get the best candidate, right? And when you hire a coaching firm and they make a recommendation, and that recommendation goes on to not do great, that doesn't look good on that firm, right? Yeah. So the firm don't want to get it wrong. So I think there was the Stillwater people, the lifelong Cowboy fans and family, and I think the other camp was the high-up administrators, maybe a couple. There was definitely a new booster involved. The owner of Paycom, actually. And then the search firm and the higher-up ADs.
Since I've heard some rumors of some assistants, but what do you want to disclose for our guy Bashada, who you're hearing from an assistant standpoint?
No, hey, I told you I didn't talk with David about it. I don't know any of the assistants he's planning on bringing, other than I would guess these are the guys that David's closest to. I mean, have you actually heard David Taylor's going to tab this guy on his staff?
Yeah, I've heard he's going to 3 specific people. Not from David, from somebody within the nucleus that can know with conviction. I don't want to say publicly who the 3 are.
Oh my God!
I don't want to.
No guts, no glory.
No, there's guts. I'm a loyalty guy, though. Really? Listen,
I know, but here's the thing. I mean, it has to be. David's not even officially announced yet. I don't think, unless it's happened just right now.
Austin, I am reading the chat. Does that sound better for my mic? Well, that's the other thing is you don't know. It's if who I'm hearing, the names all make sense. I think Kennedy's obviously an obvious one. let's just say Kennedy, for example. If Kennedy goes with David, that's an instant. That's going to happen right away. Penn State's now got to fill that. Dake, I did not hear. I did not hear Dake going with him.
Actually, Kale reached out. Kale asked if Jimmy goes with David, would I come on staff as strength and conditioning?
Smart.
I mean, I got 7-minute lungs, boy.
You've been saying you want an official recruiting position. What are your texts saying, Willie?
I do want to.
You smiled reading that text.
No, I was smiling at you about listen, I would be taking a pay cut to go be a director of recruiting, but I'll do it. If it's the right program and the right people, I would do it just because I don't know. I have fun doing what I'm doing and I love it and I love the autonomy, but there's a competitive element missing, you know? There's no stakes. Like, I can recommend a recruit, and if they don't work out, they don't work out. I mean, right? If no skin, I have no skin in the game. But if I'm on David Taylor, Carol Sanderson, and Tom Brand's staff, and you got to get this guy, don't get that guy. If he don't work out, right? Now it's my ass. Now it's my job. It's easy to be the brain when there's no skin in the game, when there's no report card on it, right? I would like to get back into like helping build a winner.
Yeah.
Almost, it's fantasy-esque. But yeah, I don't know. Anybody David has not even been announced. So anybody that we bring up is like very much speculation.
Right? It's speculation.
I mean, there's no way that David Taylor said, yeah, I'm looking to hire this guy.
Well,
he got the job 5 minutes ago.
But there's people he's been talking to for weeks that this has been thought out. This isn't an overnight, hey, maybe I'll take this. David has thought these things out, and he's had a lot of conversations with enough people that the conversations are happening. I am interested. If I go, would you want to coach? Or like those conversations have already happened. So while I do think he's not the coach yet, I do think part of this was saying, if I'm going to take this, I need to know what my staff's going to look like to some degree versus taking a job like this, which is such a monumental shift.
So don't say with certainty, but like if I say a name, let me say a name and you say, yeah, I think he's in play. Kyle Dake.
I don't think he's in play.
Jimmy Kennedy.
I think he's in play. I also think you need to get a new mic or a new computer because you're delaying again. Felters has asked me for this link. Felters is going to get this link. Where is this Felters?
Hey, let's go, Thomas Gilman.
I think Gilman's in play.
Eric Thompson.
I don't know if he's in play or not, but that would be, I could see that one for sure. I mean, he used to be with him at M2.
Yeah, that's all I got. You got any more like, doesn't this one make sense type of thing? Who am I leaving out?
Felters is going to join in a minute, I think. And if he wants to start naming names, there's some people that I think are not an obvious choice. And again, these are also names that are potential. Like you said, I do think he's thinking his staff through. I don't think any of these guys have gone and said, hey, I'm leaving, I'm taking this job with David Taylor. And obviously, if they go and have that conversation and they're offered money, a position, or whatever, that might change. So I don't think his staff by any means is finalized for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if Chenzo's in play. I know a lot of people are texting Chenzo. I think Chenzo would be a great get for any coach in this country. But I don't know that Chenzo's in play right now. Should NLWC find a way to keep DT just for the M2 pipeline? I'm sure that was a very real conversation of, one of the things that Wyatt Hendrickson said when I had him on the podcast earlier was David Taylor, Kyle Dake, these are all guys that the current college kids grew up role modeling these kids. And David Taylor has a lot of star power to recruits, not even just M2, just being on staff. So I'm sure David talking to Cal, I'm sure that couldn't have been an easy conversation of, I think I'm going to go do this. Okay, have fun.
I wonder if, because David told me when I talked to him last week, when I talked to him Thursday, he said he was opening up a new facility, a new M2 facility, expanded, right? And so I wonder if what the plan is that maybe does he sell it to somebody? Does he sell it to Mark McKnight or what happens there? I mean, that's the least of our concerns, but it's another offshoot of the topic.
Well, it's 100%, much like we were talking about all the different things that are in play with Penn State specifically and David Taylor. Like David's businesses, I mean, him and Kendra own a juice company with multiple locations in State College. They just bought a farm. They own M2. Like he's got a lot of roots planted. I mean, he's been in State College for 15 years now. There's a lot of moving components.
Maybe David will put me on staff as like recruiting coordinator / ranch hand.
You're just trying to whore yourself out to every program at this point, aren't you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Who else did I?
Well, you just said Penn 5 minutes ago.
State, I told you.
Yeah. By the way,
maybe 10 programs I would consider.
Why hasn't Oklahoma State made this announcement yet? I mean, it's 10:15 here on the East Coast. You were hearing from people that they're definitely announcing it tonight. I heard people say they're announcing it tonight.
Well, I said at the top of the show for anybody that just jumped in, I said at the top of the show that I was told that they were announcing tonight, and I reluctantly say that. I was told that they're announcing tonight because to me the likelihood of them still announcing tonight is unlikely because it's 10 o'clock East Coast. And so, but that's as unlikely as it sounds, that's what I was told. And that came from the top at Okie State. So they said it. It seems unlikely. It seems more likely we'll hear it by tomorrow.
It's crazy, too, to think about, obviously I'm a social media marketing, all that guy. And if you notice, David Taylor has not made a post since the Olympic trials. Imagine on April 19th when David made a post that said, "One more day, I compete tomorrow." And somebody said, "I'll bet you his next post is that he's going to be the head coach of Oklahoma State." All right, we've got a special guest, Willie.
Well,
he's getting upset. He got out of the tree stand.
Are you sure he's not calling from the tree stand?
What, Felters, you there or
got
what?
The whole squad in here?
We just got to get Baschamania in for the greatest group chat in wrestling. You got Wi-Fi? You good?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Well, listen, I was going to start. I just wanted to make sure Willie was going to be all right. All this uneasiness he's getting, he's not typing an article or a tweet. A little bit breaking live news makes him a little bit uneasy, I guess. Is he okay?
Uneasy?
Not me, you, bud.
What I tell you, what makes me uneasy. You hunting out of season makes me uneasy. You're going to get yourself fined by the Fish and Game Commission.
Won't be the first time. So what's the news?
Fellas, what do you think? What do you think? What do you know?
I don't know anything. I tuned in for some announcement. I just heard a bunch of breaking down of stuff, and what's the news, guys? I called just in to get the news. What's the news?
David Taylor was hired as the new groundskeeper at Feller's Farm.
No, but I'm being serious. So David's going to be head wrestling coach at Oklahoma State?
That's what Willie started the show off with. You were late to the show. You were hunting. That's
No,
what
his internet was lagging, I think.
it still is. He needs a new computer. Maybe the owner of Intermat can get him one.
Okay, so David's the head coach. Wow, that's a turn of events.
That's one of the biggest pendulum shifts in wrestling in a long time.
What changed the last 24 hours?
That's part of the conversation of trying to break that down. And there's people who were saying, like, nope, David turned it down. It looks like it's Coleman. It sounds like it's going to be Coleman universally.
Listen,
and then
100% fact, Felter's fact. He did turn it down Sunday. So something changed between. Wow.
Yeah. We talked about it. A little bit previously.
Okay. I'm trying to just, this is called trying to set you up, I've been told I can't cuss. It's not Tom Brady roast 2.0, so I'm just going to try to put a little bit cordial here. So this is the first real big branch off Kale's coaching tree, right?
yeah, I'd say so.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
This is exciting for college wrestling, I guess.
Why are you acting like such a goober right now? Say what you think.
I'm not. I'm just playing nice and cordial. Like I was just saying, it is exciting news. Like
I know what you're saying. Before I had to talk Bash in. I said we got to do this one live, and Bash is like, well, what if we say something wrong? I'm like, let's go live.
No,
okay.
So I know what you mean.
Let's.
Bash right now.
I didn't. First of all, I didn't say if we say something wrong.
I'm just asking questions, guys. Listen, I'm asking direct questions that people want to know. Not. I'm just saying, like, okay. So it's a break immediately. Like, what happens? Willie, I heard you say that you got to keep somebody on staff. Hypothetically, that probably makes sense, but if you're going to try to bring a whole new regime in, I don't think you can keep anybody. Unfortunately, I mean that's not how these things work in the business world.
I'll tell you this. Right
I'm
now.
not saying it's not. I'm not
I'll
saying
tell you
it's not
this
a good
right
idea.
now.
Listen.
I'll tell you this right now, and it would be my recommendation to do so. I have no idea if David would consider this, but there are very high-ranking Oklahoma State alumni that are in coaching positions as we speak that will stay on or come in for a year or two and say, David, I'm here to help you get the program off your era off on the right foot. And if after a couple years the decision is for me to go in a different direction, that's fine. I just want to see you have success, and I want to help you administratively and in the town and meet the right people and shake the right hands, and I want to be supportive. There are very high qualified, highly regarded Oklahoma State people. I talked to several of them. So
listen, I think that makes sense, like hypothetically, but let me play devil's advocate side of this. You've got a guy coming in that's obviously not Oklahoma State alumni, doesn't have any ties. You're also going to have to say, okay, are you in or are you out? Like, there's going to have to be, unfortunately,
that's precisely why you need somebody.
But
that's
there's going to be ties.
Why he needs somebody.
Ties to
Stillwater's a small town, man.
Regardless, right?
No.
So do you really have people's?
What's going to be tied to the old regime?
The way things are, do you have people's best interest? What's that?
Well, no, it's like anything. It's like anything. You have to pick somebody that you trust, right? It would have to be somebody that you trust. But I think it's precisely because of the culture at Oklahoma State where it has been this. And frankly, I'd probably say the same thing about Iowa, but Iowa's a bigger city. I mean, there's something very familial, very claustrophobic, very high schoolish. There's something very high schoolish about Stillwater, where this person's your friend, this person's not. He goes behind your back. He can do this, you do that.
Let me ask you this,
I'm
Willie.
saying
Willie,
my recommendation
let
would be
me ask you this.
somebody from Oklahoma State you trust. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. This coaching decision, I thought it was going to be Coleman the whole way. It is obviously a statement that the university or Oklahoma State University is making that, in their eyes, is the best candidate that they think they can go get to be impactful in their program, correct?
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Okay.
If not, I think
Coleman
Scott
says that no one's above the program.
Like, there.
Why there's a bunch of feelings and like at the end of the day, you want to be. They want Oklahoma State. I'm not saying they can't be winners that way, but like the intangible aesthetics of it, or like the feelings part of it, I don't know if that's going to drive the needle. Like these guys that's coming in, he hasn't won. I guess they've all but won at everything their entire lives except coaching thus far, right?
Well, okay. You can if you're a Cowboy fan right now and you want to determine how you feel about this hire, which largely came down to David and Coleman in the final stages, but there was also opportunity maybe for Pat Pop, opportunity for Chris Pendleton, perhaps
the job.
Biggest swing they took at one point was Casey Cunningham. But no, I'm just saying, when you step back and you say these are who could have been it, okay, and then it came down to Coleman and David. You can make an argument. I see people arguing, well, Coleman's the more experienced guy. Well, David has the higher upside, right? Those seem to be the two viewpoints. One thing you have to take away from the administration is they did something uncomfortable. They did something not outside the box, but they went to go get who they felt was the best. It's going to ruffle feathers. It's going to be really freaking expensive. What they just told the Oklahoma State fan base is they really want to win because they did not take the easy way out. And
okay, thanks for point.
You have to be, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, you have to be pretty, at least appreciative of.
You have to be excited for their. I mean, it's been 20 years since they've won a national title.
Well, okay, so here's another comment. Lee Cothran, who writes for Pistols Firing, big Oklahoma State guy, he says in there in the chat, David's biggest job is going to be saving the roster that's been built. I think that is absolutely foolish and silly. I don't think it makes a bit of sense. Number one,
listen, it's not going to win year one, guys. Like if everybody
number one,
turn it all on, and I think if I was to say, okay, David, yeah, you're going to maybe have whatever disposable income at your fingertips to go build a team. And even though we're in the era of NIL, and we're seeing some people do that, I think that would be very move up front. Like there's going to be a couple years it's going to be a thing, but you're going to have to give them 5 to 7 years to turn the program around.
I think for the fans, I don't. I think it's stupid for the fans to say, you're cutting out. But the point being is, I think it's silly. I think it's silly for the fans to say, well, okay, all the people who wanted Coleman on the team, they're going to hit the portal. I mean, frankly, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I mean, because this hire is for the future. It's not what they have right now. I mean, if you're worried about winning next year or something, and this is a long-term play and probably a smart play. If you're worried about, I don't know, Jordan Williams transferring? What, are you worried about transferring? Is Cale Hughes going to transfer? Cale Hughes ain't going to transfer. I think Dustin Plott's going to transfer. Dustin Plott.
They do have an extra.
It doesn't make sense it doesn't make sense by either party.
Hey, they do have till Friday. All the Oklahoma State guys.
Coaching.
Hey, they do have till Friday to enter the portal. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they got all those guys that want to maybe get the portal.
Change.
Willie, why is he patting his Hawkeye sweatshirt?
Oh, I don't know.
No, but if I'm Oklahoma State fan,
it just frustrates.
If I'm Oklahoma State
fan,
it
frustrates me when I see the comments.
Yeah, but that's people that are short-sighted. They're gonna that if you're building a business and gonna turn around. If I'm Oklahoma State fan though, I've been waiting 20 years to get turned around.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me it's gonna be another 5?
Yeah. It's not going to be another 5.
Communication.
It's not going to be another 5. They were 10th this year.
Willie, you got to get a new computer.
What are you saying there, Turkey?
Give me the crystal ball. How many years is it going to take? Give me your crystal ball prediction the next time Oklahoma State's in the top 3.
It only have to be top 4. I sponsor the 4th place trophy now. Remember?
Okay.
But I don't know.
I don't know either. I was
Who
just
did we lose?
This Willie, can Willie get a computer and a Wi-Fi connection? Guy runs a wrestling conglomerate and he can't get a steady Wi-Fi connection.
His brain power's being so stressed right now, it's killing his Wi-Fi. All right, I'll let you guys go. Maybe I'm killing the connection.
Am I back yet?
No, you're not killing the connection. His computer is lagging, so he's like.
Okay, Bash. Let's wait for him. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's this impact to Penn State? I mean, it's not just somebody's leaving. It's Kale's. Always seemed like it's been his first big star, his heir apparent.
I don't.
A lot of intertwining. There's been a lot of intertwinings with him and a lot of things that, like, what impact does this have to Penn State, and if any?
I think the recruiting is the biggest one. I think as long as Penn State continues to win and has the dominance they're having and has the coaching staff they have, I think these kids are going to want to be. They're going to want to go to Penn State. I don't think that's going to change. But these M2 kids, like, I don't think Levi Haynes is going to transfer because David's at Oklahoma State. I don't think Tyler Kasich transfers. But I do think when you had that kind of like foregone conclusion almost that you have this recruiting pipeline from M2 to Penn State, and whether or not David gets rid of M2 and somebody else like Mark McKnight takes it over, I can't see a world where David can run M2 as a D1 head coach. So
he legally can't run it, but you can always write it over, right? Like I'm not saying they're going to lose it, but it definitely gives another option to top tier recruits of a Penn State-esque program they could go to, right?
Yeah, and depending on how much money David gets as far as NIL and start recruiting, like it's going to be interesting to see what kind of squad he can build. Bashada said, is it 5 years until they win a title over PSU? Is it, how many years is it? David's been in that.
There's too many unknowns to know that. Like it's too that's.
I don't really like those questions. Really, I really don't think it's. I don't know if that's fair. I don't know if it's fair to say how long until they're top 3, how long until they win a title, because
it is fair. That's what got hard to do.
Yeah, but sure, but we're in an era where one team wins it every year, right?
Yeah. Now you had a big part. At least aesthetically, maybe not like in day-to-day impact, but a big part of that program has pieced off, and now it's going to be one of the top 3, the winningest college program of all time.
Yeah. The interesting thing about
a lot of unknowns.
David they have recruited well. They have one of the 3 biggest brands out there. They have the history and the high school athletes who appreciate that history. So they have recruited well. Now, certainly as far as numbers, if you look at number of big boarders and what numbers they were, top top 20 guys. They've recruited really well. They've got those numbers. Now, did they get the right ones of those numbers? That could be debated. But I think in tandem with the history of the program, the facilities, the new facilities that are coming, and it being David Taylor and his name and his brand and his proximity to being an Olympic champion, I think they're going to recruit really well, as good as ever.
Let me ask you this. This is my Felter's parking question. How important is it for John Smith to come out and publicly endorse this hiring from Oklahoma State?
I think it would be the right move. I don't know how important it is. I think.
John Smith doesn't.
If Oklahoma State has made the announcement. They just put it out.
You're telling me that if John Smith doesn't endorse it versus he does endorse the hire, there's not a difference?
No, I think there's a difference in Stillwater. I don't think there's a difference nationally. No.
Well, I think it would put a lot of and maybe internal or questionable divide to rest if John says it's a great hire or doesn't say it's a great hire.
Yes,
and then you're always you're gonna have this
PR wise, it's the good move. But do I think if John Smith doesn't endorse the hire, and I'm going to tell you right now, no Oklahoma State people want to believe this. No Oklahoma State people want to believe this. John blessed this. John blessed this decision. If John came out and said, I don't agree with the decision, it should have been an Oklahoma State Cowboy, I would say, I don't think you're telling the truth, John. I guarantee you, John blessed this decision. And whether John comes out and says, yeah, David Taylor's our next leader, I'm really excited, or he doesn't, I don't think it's going to make one bit of difference in how successful David is. What's the impact to if John does or does not make a statement?
And Felters is gone. He must have lost Wi-Fi on the farm, but yeah. So it's official. Oklahoma State just put it out. David Taylor is the new head coach. This is a monumental day in wrestling, and I think this is one of those things that there are going to be so many different things to dissect over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Who goes with him? Even assume Jimmy Kennedy goes with him. Right then and there, you have a coaching position available with the Penn State dynasty. Who do they bring in to fill that position?
True. Very true.
You know what I mean? It's like
what's interesting is, Jimmy lives there. David's parents moved to State College.
Yeah.
So, if Jimmy leaves, right, you're right. There's a assistant position open there. Who does that go to? Does that go to a null for somebody? And obviously David rounding out his roster. David, and you know what? Anytime there's a coaching change, coaches sort of I don't want to say purge the roster, but it will be interesting to see who stays and who goes on the roster. It'll be interesting to see who comes and goes that are free agents right now, Alirez and Hendrickson and others. And so, right, we're going to be digesting this for quite a bit. And the guys that they have in line as commitments, the D. Lockett's, does he stay committed? I would almost guarantee he stays committed. But
by the way, for
David,
for Corey,
June 15th, we're talking about June 15th, which is in 5-6 weeks. That's the first day to contact juniors. So, right, they've got a month to move and start recruiting.
Yeah, a few things. One, Corey just asked, is DT, does he continue competing? Everybody keeps asking this. I don't think he was going to compete regardless of this coaching move. He's 33 years old. He just went to his third Olympic trials. Wrestlers make decisions in quads. I don't think David's going to stick around. Number one, he's not sticking around until he's 37 years old. That ain't happening. That was never happening. So does he stick around for a non-Olympic weight world championships or 16 months for next year's Worlds? I don't think that was ever the plan when he lost. Or if he won. I don't think that was ever a plan for him, in my opinion.
Now, back when we were doing the trial shows, and I said it's really tough to gauge where people are at on a senior level circuit because you don't see them for 6 months, 8 months, right? And you don't know how, especially when you're winning and you're making money and you're successful in other avenues and you have businesses and you have this and that. I wasn't sure. I went into the Olympic trials assuming we would see the same David Taylor, but knowing that Father Time catches up with everybody, knowing that he had a lot on his plate, I went in there thinking this could be his last year. This could be his last run.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost. And now he has a head coaching job. And to me, I'm like, from where I sit, David, you accomplished it all. You slayed Yazdani several times. You won world championships. You won Olympic gold. Now you're the head coach with a lot on your plate at 34-time national champions. Walk away from competition with your head held high, like you should, and focus on the next task. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's obviously, where there's smoke, there's fire. And when this first broke a couple weeks ago, there's been, I've seen the texts from people that are like, he's having these conversations. He's interested. He's probably not, but he's interested. But like a lot of hemming and hawing. So you figure this has been a couple of weeks now. That is a massive life decision in a couple of weeks. And a lot of these things I think he still has to figure out. I don't think he's really at max 2-3 weeks. That's crazy. This is a big decision that I think a lot of things are going to keep getting figured out.
I will say this. When I talked to him, one of the first things he brought up, I said, David, look, your name's getting, I'm not calling to like dig information out of you. I just want to have a conversation. I just want to tell you, number one, I know that there's been communication from Oklahoma State and that you're in the mix for it and you might be considering it, you might not. And I just wanted to say, one, I think you'd be very successful. I said, two, these opportunities don't come around too often. And he was like, yeah, there's been communication. He's like, I'm being too verbose here. One of the first things he brought up was, I might still want to compete, right? So that was a real thing in the back of his mind.
I don't think he ever thought
he accepted the job. I think now that he's accepted the job, he should put it.
I think, I don't know if there was anybody more than David ready to, I don't want to say look past the Olympic trials, but I would have never put David Taylor in the bucket of people who had that conversation of, hey, if I don't make the team this weekend, I'm probably done. I don't think that was ever a conversation David had. So I think he had to take some time and come to that conclusion, but I don't think that, I don't think the end conclusion of that was going to be, hey, I should still compete. The guy is going to go down as one of the all-time greats with every accomplishment.
I mean, I just got done saying that he mentioned still competing, or he was thinking about competing. However, I find it hard to believe that he didn't think about it prior. Like, I find it hard to believe that he didn't consider this his last year anyway. At least consider it.
Yeah.
Like you're telling me that David had plans to like do this Olympics and then keep going? Because I don't like that was a foregone conclusion. Because I don't think that was a foregone conclusion. I think David has been thinking about hanging it up. And I think that this would put a period on that sentence.
So we'll talk a couple more questions.
Another thing too, like, do you realize with Gable too, man? With Gable too, I didn't hear anybody bring this up in media. Like David missing out on this Olympics and Gable getting cut 2 weeks after trials. Do you know what they would have gotten to win the Olympics?
Well, he would go
July.
Well, I saw Kozak saying, maybe Nomad too, like, so it's 500,000 if you repeat, but they're trying to refute that and saying that was a special Burroughs thing. I think that set the new standard that if you repeat, you double up.
That was my understanding.
That was mine too.
If you repeat, it's $500,000. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So I mean.
So Willie,
that had to be
first of many questions. What do you do if you're Coleman Scott?
Well, listen, I've always been tight with Coleman. Damn near went to work for him. And like I said at the top of the show, it hurts me that some of these guys are in limbo. I love these guys. Chris Perry. Like even a guy like Zoe, somebody has to David either keep him or somebody has to pick him up. But Coleman's not gonna go from Oklahoma State co-head coach and finalist for the position to unemployed, like not unemployable. He's going to get a job. He's going to be on staff somewhere, right? I mean, he's still young. The future's bright for him too. Is it heartbreaking that it's not going to be at his alma mater? Absolutely. But he's still a hell of a coach. And he'll land on his feet.
I had a cool graphic ready for if Coleman was I've had a graphic made for 3 weeks that, a lot of times if there's a definitive thing that I think is going to happen, I'll just make a graphic. And I hadn't made a Coleman graphic when it was looking like it was going to be Coleman. And I had a picture of when Coleman won it in 2008. And then now, and it's like 16 years later, Coleman Scott takes over. So it's like the story was there. It definitely shows you how much Oklahoma State wanted David Taylor, that even after he said no, and it doesn't, maybe it's staff, but it doesn't sound like he said, no thanks, that's not enough money. It sounds like it was, hey, that's a fair offer, I just don't think I'm going to do it. And then they pushed a number so much so that it's like, how do I say no to this if I was on the fence before?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's another. We talked about who may stay and leave Okie State, who may stay and leave Penn State, who's Penn State going to hire as assistant, who's Taylor going to hire as assistants. Another one is the staff at Oklahoma State. They're all young. I mean, they all got really – they've all have a lot to offer programs, and I think they get picked up. I think every single one of them get picked up.
Has the sport of wrestling ever had a high-profile hire like this where you have a high-profile college program take a coach who's never had any college coaching history before or experience?
I don't think so.
Right? Like, this has to be the first. I mean, this is...
And count me in the camp of... In the sport of wrestling, I don't think it matters. I think it matters in some walks of life and other sports, and maybe in other industries. But in wrestling, I don't think. Listen, David Taylor knows how to coach. The guy knows how to coach. Does he know how to go to a compliance meeting, deal with compliance issues? Does he know who to call when this happens, who to call when that happens? If he needs something, does he know what that'll he'll learn that. These are not he'll get reps in those things, and those things are frankly tertiary. I mean, David's not going to be derailed by administrative shit.
I was talking
He's
to
going to recruit wrestlers. He's going to recruit good wrestlers. Hell, most of them are going to recruit him, and he's going to refine technique, and he's going to be innovative because that's what David does. And so all the stuff about, well, I would somebody more experienced. I don't blame you for thinking that, but I do blame you for if you think David Taylor is going to be railroaded, if you think David Taylor could fail because he doesn't have administrative repetitions, I think you're high.
I was talking to Burroughs about it this weekend, and he had a lot of interesting takes and opinions. He thought David was going to take it. He said, I don't think he talked to David about it. I just thought Jordan, looking at it holistically, just from his perspective, he thought he would end up taking it. And a lot of his take, the way it's played out, has been spot on. And he had said, like, if you're somebody like David Taylor, or even if you're somebody like Jordan, you hire the right staff who does a lot of the things you're describing.
Yeah.
And this is a big program that has the resources to get the best coaches, to get the best staff, to get everything you need to really set him up for success. And I'm sure he didn't go into this pitching Oklahoma State on how good he is with approaching compliance officers and SIDs and all of that. This is not a blind job interview where they're like, teach me about yourself, David Taylor. Like, they know who he is and they wanted him.
Yeah. Ryan from North Carolina says women's field hockey went from star player to head coach the next year. I actually, that was recently, right? I actually faintly remember that. But yeah, it's rare. It's rare. And I can't speak to field hockey or volleyball or all I know is wrestling, and I don't see it being a hindrance.
Yeah, this is
I think we're all hyped for this, right? I think we know the brand of wrestling that David Taylor has done and that he espouses. Wrestle hard, lay it on the line, score points, be creative. We know he's a piece of the. We know he's in the room with one of the most dominant sports franchises of recent history, right? So there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of reason to be hyped. If you're an Oklahoma State fan, I think you should be ecstatic. But if his results aren't immediately incredible, it's not going to be because of administrative stuff, guys.
How do you think the Oklahoma State fan base will be as far as expectations? It's a hard question, I know, but like, just what does your gut say with how the Oklahoma State fans will be as he takes over?
I think they come around. I think there's a lot of people in Stillwater tonight that are bummed. Because they're very, very tight knit. It's a very unique place. Stillwater's very, very unique. I love it. I thought about moving there. I've been looking at houses there online for 5 years. I love the tight knit community there, but it's precisely that tight knit community where that makes some people in town tonight bummed. But ultimately, like all great franchises, like all great fan bases, they'll go through the stages of grief, and I think they'll be back, and I think they'll be back in full force.
And it's about as much as of a shakeup as you can have. Like this is as big of, we keep saying like monumental shift and pendulum change. And when you do something like this, I mean, Cale leaving Iowa State to go to Penn State was probably the last biggest one that was of this caliber, I think. But back then, like I was talking to Wyatt Hendrickson about it, it's like you didn't have the media. You didn't have, when Cal Sanderson left Iowa State, you did not have a Willie and JB on Rokfin talking about it with all these people on Twitter and NIL, and this is.
You know what happened that day? Well, I'll tell you what was the extent of coverage really that day. There was an article on Internet, and the Matt.com message boards went ballistic. That was the extent. That was the extent of Cale Sanderson moving from one power program to another power program. That was the extent of it. Now, right, we're talking about it now. There's tons of buzz on social media. Flow will have something. Internet will have something. Win Magazine will have something. Media coverage is much more robust now.
And there's going to be so many trickle-down things. Somebody's asking, Christian, does this give them a better shot to get Hendrickson or Liras? I think so. Listen, Oklahoma State is the new thing. They're the new shiny object in wrestling, because there's now going to be this. You already have Iowa that is obviously such a powerhouse and always has momentums and one of the biggest fan bases out there. You now have these Oklahoma State fans and wrestling fans. There's people who want more parity in wrestling. They want somebody to beat Penn State. It's what makes sports fun. And this is how that happens.
Yeah, there's certainly some recruits out there tonight that I guarantee you there's recruits out there tonight that are now like where they first were like Penn State or bust, Penn State or bust, Penn State or bust, are now like Penn State or Okie State, right? Or like there's gonna be an attraction just off this news. That's it. Just off the press release. There's going to be a reaction from blue chippers across the country. I'm getting word that Liras might be staying.
That'd be interesting. I hope he does. I really do. I hope he stays put.
I hope he does too.
It's interesting to watch guys go in the portal and then stay. Slavakuski at Rutgers staying.
I love it.
If he stays. Christopher Earl, come around. We are ecstatic.
Yeah,
a lot of Oklahoma State fans pretty excited. And I wasn't referring to excitement levels. I'm more so saying the expectation, where does that fall? The expectations are going to be very high. Even Martin's in the chat saying, how soon can they vie for a national title? When you have a guy like David, that's where it's like, it's going to be interesting to see where the expectations fall within the fan base specifically.
Sure. Right. Like I said, I did say right now there's blue chippers that are now have Okie State on the radar as opposed to 10 minutes ago. They didn't, right? But the double-edged sword with that comes with the expectations, right? Now you have to meet some of those. You have to at least show signs of getting a difference-making performance. And so, but yeah, Christopher Earl, I'll tell you, there's a lot of Okie State fans that are ecstatic. There is also a lot of Okie State fans, and you don't have to take my word for it. Go look up message boards. Go look up social media. A lot of Okie State fans, and to a degree myself, bummed that their guys are on the outs.
Do you think, or how soon do you think we see potential recruits flip from Penn State? Do you think we see any?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I wouldn't know any off the top of my head. Like I wouldn't say like, oh, Zach Ryder might flip now. PJ Duke might flip. So and so, Josh Barr might flip. There's nobody off the top of my head that I'm saying there's such a David Taylor connection that they're gonna go right.
Yeah.
But it could happen. And the thing is with the guys that are committed. So with the guys that are committed, I wouldn't expect it to be too many at all, because with the guys that are committed to Penn State, one, they're really freaking good. We're not talking about number 70 on the big board. We're talking about number 7. Okay, they're really freaking good. Number 2, while there's optimism about David and Oklahoma State, the proof's in the pudding at Penn State. They're the best in the history at coaching you up. I mean, it's an unprecedented pace.
Lee is saying y'all act like there isn't talent there. We have the number 2 guy in 2024 assigned, number 2 guy in 2025 committed. We're not saying there's not talent, but this is a massive elevation in the program.
I don't know who's not acting like the talent isn't there. I brought up D. Lockett. I said 5 minutes ago, D. Lockett, I would expect to stay anyway. So, they got talent committed. I would assume that they would stay there. I mean, some guys are loyal. You saw the Christian Carroll tweet. He obviously was for his guys and his staff, the incumbent staff. But I think, some of them may go, right? Some of the Okie State guys may go. But I think most of them, will come around to it and realize there's a great opportunity ahead with David Taylor. Like Dustin Plott's an Oklahoma boy through and through. And he got to work with great coaches, Tyler Caldwell, Chris Perry, who's done a lot for him. And now this new guy comes in, David Taylor. And I think if you're Dustin Plott and you got 1 year left, instead of being bummed that your existing staff is out, be pretty excited that you get to work under a new guy, an innovative guy. It's only 1 year.
Do you think anybody, obviously this is just so much speculation, this is what you do with big news, but do you think that if Coleman were to go somewhere else, maybe somebody like a Dustin or Christian Carroll followed him?
I think there's a possibility of that. Yeah, I think there's a possibility of that. I would think it would be more likely for a Christian Carroll. I think it would be more likely for a freshman, sophomore than it would be for a guy like Dustin Plott who got 1 year left.
Yeah, it's going to be – what an offseason it's been.
Stay at your alma mater.
M2, people are asking about M2.
Interesting times.
M2 is a huge question mark. David Taylor cannot coach M2 while coaching at Oklahoma State. Just can't do it. You can't – I don't know what the specific rule is, but
But the thing is, too, about Oklahoma State and very – actually, they kind of invented it before Penn State did. Before there was M2 as a training facility, as a breeding ground for Penn State, Oklahoma State was doing that at Stillwater High School. Kids moving there as a junior in high school, staying there a year or two, and then going right to Oklahoma State, getting in-state tuition, getting used to their system. And so Oklahoma State also has a history of innovative pipeline working. And whether that's at Stillwater High School or the Cowboy Wrestling Club or something off campus or somebody builds a new facility. I mean, you can't say it's out of the realm of possibility to buy or build or rent an existing space and have a M2 like Mark McKnight like pipeline like they have at M2, right? It's just David can't own it.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks as this continues to unfold. Man, there's so many moving components. And I think it's just going to be announcement after announcement for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks as David Taylor sets his coaching staff, as those who are, as David hires somebody, what happens to the former guys at Oklahoma State? What happens to a guy like Jimmy Kennedy, who will probably go with him as his brother-in-law? And obviously, Dave Kendrick, their whole family is going to move. So, that opens up a spot at Penn State. Like, all these announcements can be crazy.
You know what's interesting, too? I mean, we could talk about this for another hour because we keep saying, what about this? What about that? I wonder if this, I wonder if that. There's so much more to come based on this single announcement. But I'll leave you with one last one. We talked about David. They make an offer. David says probably no. They come back with what is allegedly being termed as more resources, whether that's salary, whether they come back with another offer, right? There's essentially now almost unlimited coaches, really. If you look at the way the rule book is now, there's almost unlimited coaches. So while we're used to, in terms of thinking about, okay, you get a head assistant, a number 2 assistant, maybe a number 3 assistant, maybe a volunteer assistant. I mean, David he might, and Oklahoma State actually has this now. I mean, if you ever go to Oklahoma State, and you go in their room, there's like 8 dudes on staff. I ain't lying. And so there's a potential really for David to bring in a boatload of guys. If, the resources are as robust as what we're hearing.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens as well with, and for those kind of wondering, what is he talking about? The way RTCs are structured and everything else, you don't need to have somebody as a coach. You can have a million guys around, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with the Cowboy RTC. Does a guy like Thomas Gilman go with him, and does Gilman stop competing? Does he now compete with the Cowboy RTC? Like, there's going to be so many moving components to this.
And remember, David comes from the biggest RTC in the history of the sport. There has never been an RTC associated with a university, maybe like Foxcatcher, but there's never been an RTC, the way it's currently designed, that has been bigger and housed more elite athletes than Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. Now David is going to a Cowboy Wrestling Club that has very few. I mean, other than Penn State, they all have very few senior level athletes.
Yeah.
So I think that it's safe to say, I think that one thing that's really safe to say is that the senior level roster at Cowboy Wrestling Club will be bigger than what we've seen.
And for a while, for the last at least 5 years, probably 10 years, you talk Cormier and stuff, like the Oklahoma State to MMA pipeline was a very real thing.
Yeah. Lee Cothran in the chat said Thomas Gillen tried to fight John Smith. And that's not a lie. Thomas gets a little rambunctious. He definitely went after Chris Perry one time. Just over nothing, too. It was over nothing. It was over walking in the lobby doors. And just Thomas is Thomas.
Oh man, I can't wait for all the updates, for the announcements, the news. I want it all.
Honestly, my first role, I mean, my first law order of business here is I'm looking to see the reaction because we've been on the show. I've been
I know
doing nothing but talking. I got a million texts. I'm sure Twitter and the message boards are on fire right now. It's all. I can't believe they announced it tonight. Sure enough, I was told.
How good do you feel?
And they announced it at freaking 11 o'clock. I feel vindicated. I was like, I have to say this. I have to say they're going to announce tonight because I was told they were going to announce, but I'm going to have egg on my face because there ain't no way they're announcing at 10 o'clock at night. And they did.
I know. Hey, Ben Askren was right. He tweeted last night. I'm guessing they announce it tomorrow, and they did.
They did. Ben Askren's vindicated too. Dyson's saying we should get David on the call right now. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. It's going to get David on the show. Anyway. All right, Bash. We did the damn thing. Props to you for having the courage to go live. I know it wasn't easy for you.
Hey, not just live.
You did, in fact, go the entire show. You did, in fact, go this entire show without a slip of the tongue in revealing any of your sources, which is really what you were concerned with. So good job by you.
I've got a lot of relationships in this sport that go far beyond like news, like Basch Solutions clients, my friends, and I always want to be very respectful of what people tell me, and you know, it's just one of those. David Taylor changed his handle from Magic Man PSU to Magic Man _OSU. This is crazy. David Taylor, April 19th, extremely grateful for the Olympic trials. I compete tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. Next tweet, forever grateful for my Penn State family. I'm looking forward to this new chapter with Cowboy Wrestling. What a 1-2 back-to-back that nobody saw coming. Wowza.
Well, hey, listen, we got to get a Penn State-Okie State match on the schedule for 2025.
Or do we let David build it in 2025 and then we do it?
Josh Newman's an Okie State Cowboy fan. He's been DMing me all week asking for updates. He said, I got a reaction for you. The bourbon's going down smooth tonight. You bet your ass. I'm going to have some right now, Josh.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. This is a historic night. We're going to be doing many more shows about this because there's going to be so many different things happening. So, all right, we're out. Go subscribe. Oh, Cowboy Willie. Cowboy Willie is in full effect. Husker Willie gone. Cowboy Willie is in. Oh, man. All right, that's the show.